everybody and welcome. If you've been following me, you will know that I have just sketched out a sunflower excuse me, and now it's time to paint it. So I've just taken my eraser and I've rubbed off a lot of the shading that was on there. I can still see it quite clearly. I think you probably can as well, just so the graphite doesn't get mixed up with the acrylic and dull the colours down. So I'm once again going to be using largely distress paint, so you will know what colours I'm on about. And the first two I think I'm going to use is Fossilised Amber and Mustard Seed. So you can see there's slightly different hue. This one's more ochre, orangey. This one's more yellowy. So let's put a little bit of those out. I'll just start with the mustard seed first. First off, get my paintbrush. I have used this already today, so it's still damp. So just pick up some of that. And we're not going to do anything more flash than just colour in these petals, the first petals that we drew in. So I'm going to do about 3 or 4 and then come back and put a bit of shading on them while the paint's still a little bit wet. You can use watercolours for this, of course. You know, use what you've got. I'm using the distress paints because I know that a lot of you bought them when I first had my passion for them. They're great little paints. I mean, you know, they're not cheap, that's all I would say. So I'll put one more in and then we'll come back, put a little bit of shading on them. There we are. So into the Fossilised Amber, little drop of that. And I haven't washed my brush or anything, it's still got some of that other colour on it. So I'm just going to come down the middle and to the bottom with just a little bit of shading. It's not standing out very well actually, I think you might have trouble seeing that. Can you see that? Yeah, I think you can. Excellent. So I'm just kind of coming down the centre and then a little bit at the bottom. Nothing more fancy than that. So having drawn yours, I'm absolutely certain you can paint it. So there's 4 petals. Let's just wipe off some of that darker colour and back into the lighter one again. And round we go. If you've left a lot of graphite on yours, sometimes it does mix up with the paint and you get a kind of mucky colour. Sometimes that might be what you're after, but generally it's not. So just take your eraser and get rid of the thickest bits of graphite. I'm using my angle shader again for this. I don't know what to do without it. It's kind of like an essential to me. But I know other people who paint, loath to call myself an artist, but other people that paint don't use angle shaders. You know, they use flat brushes or whatever. Right, so that's those 4, so let's just put in a little bit of shading into them as well. We'll shade as we go, although we'll have to come back and put some more in eventually. It's a big blob of paint. But we'll dry these like these and then they've got a good start. Dry these like this, I meant to say. So yeah, you need a good yellow for this. Yellows are very difficult colours in acrylics. They're very transparent as a general rule. And very often what you find that you have to do is paint white first and then your yellow on top to kind of give it a bit of a chance. But we're alright here because the paper is white anyway. I'm trying not to put the heel of my hand down in the petals that I've already painted. That's another, oh, it's 3, but that's fine. Got a bit too much bright yellow on there. It's not showing up with the darker one. So we're nearly at the end of the first round. And this, if you missed the drawing one, the one where I sketched this out, you will have missed the project that it's going into, but I'll show you at the end. It's going into a very convoluted journal, a trifold journal, and I have big ideas for it. I really do. So let's just put a little bit of that fossilised amber down here. There we go. Right, so we've got our first layer of petals done. And I mean, already, if you said to somebody, what's that? I'm sure they'd say, well, it's a sunflower. So get yourself to that stage. And then if you want, have a break, go and get yourself a cup of coffee, watch a telly programme, do what you want, and come back and tackle a bit more of it. So I'm going to put some vintage photo out if I have it. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's still in the drawer. Oh, there it is. Vintage photo. So I'm going to mix my vintage photo a little, tiny little bit. Ooh, splat. With the mustard seed. There we go. Because I'm going into the next lot of petals. That just, oh thanks. That just needs drying off a bit, otherwise I'm just going to pull all this paint into the back. Still quite wet down here. Okay, I think we're all right at that. Where's my brush gone? Here it is. Okay, so I'm just going to take the mustard seed, take a little bit of the vintage photo, mix them together. You don't want brown, but you want to steer clear of that yellow mustard seed as well. You want it just a bit darker. So I'm coming in between here. And this is the one that's lying behind. So that's the shadow. This colour that we're putting in now is the shadow. It's the bit that's in the shady area. It comes down to touch the centre, joins onto the centre. And then I want a bit of fossilised amber. Oh, that's mustard seed. A little bit of fossilised amber. Just for the tops of it. So we're trying to get some shading, trying to push the back ones back like that. Ah, I didn't want to do that. Let's see if I can get rid of that. Not so much. Oh well, it's a bit better than it was. Yeah, I think I've got some on my thumb there, which isn't helping. So same thing, I'm just going to mix up a larger amount of this now. So I've got, that's fossilised amber, that's the vintage photo. So I've got a nice shade there. So let's just move around our petals. I'm just doing the bits that are in the shade, the bits that we shaded last time, and this one here. And then I'm going back into the fossilised amber and just filling the top part of the petal in. So it's lighter than the petals in front. It's darker. The petals in front are lighter. What are you talking about? I hope you can see. I hope you can see what I'm up to. So I'm just going to put the fossilised amber just at the top of this one and this one. And I'm going to come in with that vintage photo mix and put that where the shading was. Like that. A little bit more for this one. There we go. I've missed out a couple, but they are really quite dark, so I'll come back for those. So this goes up there. Just where it's dark behind those petals. And here as well. Need a little bit more vintage photo in that. It's a bit light. So that's my shading there. Just into the fossilised amber, and I'm just going to put the tops in these petals. So you've got to be pernickety, I guess. Takes a while to do it, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. So it's more of this vintage photo, and I just want to do this one here that's underneath. Need a bit more vintage photo in that. Don't be afraid to mix your colours. It's a good thing to mix colours. Teaches you quite a lot about colours, actually. So, back in again with the darker one, in behind these two front petals, and I'm just going to carry on with that while I've got that on my brush, got it mixed up. Don't want it to dry out on me, definitely not. There you go. If you're doing this in watercolour, you definitely can mix your colours with watercolour as well. I'm hoping that one day soon my distress watercolour pencils will arrive, and then we'll have a high old time, because we'll play with those and see what's occurring. There we are. Right, so now I'm just going to wipe that darker colour off, and I'm going to go into the fossilised amber, and I'm going to come back to where I was, which I think was here, and just do the tips in the fossilised amber, not the darkest colour. This one here as well, because the tips are in the sunshine. It's the other bits that are shielded from the sunshine by the petals in front. There we go. So we are progressing. We're definitely progressing. So back into the vintage photo mix. I think it's drying up on me. Let's mix some more then. A little bit of vintage photo, a little bit of fossilised amber. Make ourselves another mix of that. Lovely, that looks about right. It doesn't matter if it's not exact, because nature isn't. That's the interesting thing about it. Now this is one of the tiny little ones that was lying behind, so I'm going to do it completely in the vintage photo mix because it's dark, it's behind, it's getting no light at all. What's this? Fossilized amber. I need a little bit more. Whoa, don't think I need that much. So just the top of this petal here, and I'm just kind of bringing it back down over that vintage photo mix, just so it mixes a little bit, so you haven't got a harsh line. I'm telling you, I think I might actually use my small filbert for this. There, I'm just going to put the tips in, then I'll come back and put the shading in. It's up to you, you can do it either way, it really doesn't matter. Quite a lot of graphite on that bit there, so it's gone pretty grey. This one is a dark one. It's behind everything, so it's going to be just the vintage photo mix. And this one is as well, actually, it's a dark one. And that one there is a dark one. Oh, I'm nearly run out of that mix again. Okay, so we need to come back over these ones, some of these with a light, but we need the dark there. Gonna have to mix up a bit more. There we go. So yeah, these ones here, I've done the top, but I haven't done this bit. Yeah, just this one I think, and then we need to have a look at it and see where it needs light, where it needs dark, etc, etc. I just want to pull that in a little bit into the centre. I'm just going around with my dark mix, just pulling those into the centre like that. I think that's fine. Right, I'm going to just dry that and then come back to me and we'll finish it off. Right, I think that's dry. So we need to look at it now and look where we need light and where we need dark, because that's basically what the whole thing is about. So I'm going to get my squeezed lemonade out. Now this might be light enough or it might not. Might have to mix it with picket fence or another white, but I'm going to give it a go with the squeezed lemonade first, see what happens. Make sure I've got all that dark mixture off my brush. So I just want little bits of lightness on here, just to say that's where the light's hitting it. Now don't worry, it will kind of die back a little bit, it won't be this bright. But you see, it just gives it that look that it needs. It needed light. And I think that's fine. I don't think we need any white in that. I think that's doing its job really rather well, actually. So I'm not doing anything more complicated than that. So I'm really trying to keep these as straightforward as I can, because I know that some of you, this might even be the first time you've ever picked a paintbrush up. It's amazing to think that, you know, you're now painting. So there we are, we've put those light bits on, and I think that really, really helps it. Excuse me, what it really needs now are some darker bits. That would help it even further, because, you know, what I said to you, the lightest lights next to the darkest darks. So I think our darkest dark in this case is actually the vintage photo. So let's just try that. Just try it in there. This isn't mixed with the fossilized amber, it's just the vintage photo. This one here is going to be pure vintage photo. Yeah, I think that's alright, so let's put a little bit more of that out. I'm just putting drop by drop out here so as I don't waste any of it. This one's a dark one, it's right in the back. This is dark up here and down here. This is dark altogether because it's right in the back. So just exaggerating the dark and the light, just to give it a bit of life. Just as we did with the pencil when we were shading, same areas we're going for now. So keep turning your picture around. You don't need to keep moving your hand around into awkward places. It's much easier to keep moving your paper. There we are. I think we're back to where we need to be. So there we have it. We have the sunflower with a few layers of petals. I think what I would like to do is just touch on some of these, the second layer of petals, the one behind the first layer, with just a little bit of maybe mustard seed or fossilized amber. I don't know. Mustard seed or fossilized amber. I might just go with a fossilized. Oh, I've got some fossilized amber anyway, so that makes that decision a bit easier. So I'm just coming from the tip, just feathering that back down. So we've put the darkest dark on, and now we're just going in at the tip, make it a little lighter, but bringing it back down over that vintage photo. Just over it, you know, we're not obliterating it. Just going to make the tips a little lighter. And I think I probably could have got away with mustard seed, but we'll see when I've finished this if it does need something lighter, because then we can go into it again. It's the thing with acrylics, you know, distress paint or whatever kind of acrylics you're using. Once it's dry, it's dry. It's going nowhere. It's not like inks or watercolours or anything that you have to be careful not to go over this, you know, pulls it up with it. This doesn't. When it's dry, it's fixed in place. So there we are, that's that. How does that look? looks okay. It does definitely need something lighter on some of the tips of those petals. Let's just give that a quick waft. Sure, that's fine. And I'm going to use the mustard seed. And my brush. Right, so I'm just going to go just like we did with the squeezed lemonade on the big ones. Just going to go down some of these, just a little bit of lightness. Just bring it to life for us. Nothing too stressful, it's just a little bit of the lighter colour down there. Bring them all into play. That's it. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think that's fine. And if you've got to this stage, I hope you're happy with yours. So let's just now do the centre. Right, I want the brown, that's Vintage Photo. I also want to do this one, is it? Yes, ground espresso, and I want black. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is put Vintage Photo all over it. Gives us a nice base to work from. And put it on quite thick, then it'll stay wet for a little while at least. There we go. Lovely. Right, so in the very centre we've got black, and I know that's quite a frightening prospect, but we do. So let's put a little bit of black out. You really don't need much, this is potent stuff. Pick up a little bit of that, only a little bit, and we're just going to put in the centre. The very centre, like that. So it's more of an oval than a round. There we go. And then there's quite a bright brown bit. That's fine. And then we need some ground espresso, or actually I could probably get away with mixing that Vintage Photo with the black. I bet that would work. So putting out any other paint, so I've mixed that, and then I'm going to go round just in from the edge a little bit, just like this. So when the paint's wet, it will mix really easily, which is good. Because we want that black, but we don't want it just a solid line. So I'm going back into that wet paint that we had and painting over it like that. There we go. A bit black up here. Okay. That's okay, we're getting there, that's fine. I need a much lighter bit there, but that's alright. Let's do the darks first. So I'm going to use my, actually this is a watercolour brush. I couldn't find my rigger. Well, I knew where it was, I dropped it, but I couldn't reach it. So I'm just going to use this. It's just called a round, and it is a watercolour brush, but any round that you've got will do. And I'm going to go just at the edge of there, and it's thicker down this end. Let's make that a thicker line, and then I've got the top bit to do. If you want to use your markers at this stage, that's fine, go ahead. There we are. Now we've got a sort of highlight up there, excuse me, which I'm going to put in by putting a second line of black in and leaving a little bit of a gap between them, like that, just like that. Okay, right, so we need some texture. Need some texture on that black in the middle. I'm running out of paint, so I'm just gonna, oh no, you can't see that. I'll have to move back to my vintage photo, I think. Brush. So let's go back into the vintage photo, assuming that's dry pretty much. I'm just going to put texture on it. Just little marks, just like that. So you've still got your centre, still nice and dark, but now it's got marks around it. Now I just want to lighten up that vintage photo just a little bit for the bit directly around there. So it's a little drop of picket fence. Vintage photo. Got that nice bright orange colour, a bright brown colour. So that's going to go around there, because it sort of raises up. They're strange things, the centre of sunflowers, strange things indeed. And then I'm going to go just inside that brown line, the black line should I say. Just inside there, and then I'm going to just use a little bit more white to get a lighter brown. I'm going to paint in between those two black lines so it becomes more like a highlight. There we go. Right, so now I just need texture on it. That's all I need, just a bit of texture. But before I start doing that, I've got to dry it, otherwise it'll be picking up the background as we go. That's okay, I think we're about there. So I'm going in for a light colour, a really light colour, which is the white and the vintage photo. Mix them up so we've got just a very light brown really. And I'm just going to start making texture. So it's just tiny little lines, leaving spaces between them. Little crescent shaped lines really. And once again, as I say, if you want to do this with your fine liner or a marker of whatever sort you use, feel free. I think that's okay there. It's not so bad. And then we want some black dots just around in between where we put that and the black line. So into the black again. This is a good one for Posca pens and things like that, because you just want dots. So I'm just going to start here and I'm just going to put my dots in. So if you want dots, hold your brush straight up so it's just the point that's touching it. And you know, don't do them dot, space, dot, just really random. And then much less up here. You can't see them really up there. And back down into here. There we go. So that's our sunflower centre. Now the only thing that remains is the stem. So I'm going to use this one, which is peeled paint. I've just noticed I've missed a petal out there. I'll do the stem and I'll come back to it. So I've got peeled paint on my brush and I'm coming down. You can see it between the petals there. And then I'm just coming down like so. There we go. And I just want a darker green, which is going to be Rustic Wilderness, because that's the one I've got. Let's get rid of that peeled paint, pick up a little bit of this, and it's coming down this side. So I'm going to paint that in, then I'm going to clean that off my brush, and then I'm just going to go and pull that line out a little bit across the stem. So it just gives it a bit of shading. I do actually want a little bit under the flower, a bit darker, because as you know, it's not getting any light in there. So there we are, that's that. That's fine, I think. Whoops. I headed off at a bit of a kilter, but never mind. There we are. So I've just got this one petal to do. I don't know how I missed it, but I missed it. So it's a dark one, so it's going to be a bit of oh no, fossilized amber, isn't it, with vintage photo. It's too light. There we are. That will do the job. Right, so what I'm going to do now is put a bit of a background on it. You can see I've got splotchy marks everywhere because I'm a splotchy person. Let's clean up this that we've got left. I'm quite happy with that. I think that's okay. Let's clear this up before I get it anywhere else where I don't want it. I'm just going to dry this off, so I'll pause you for a sec. Right, so I've got that drying. I've had a good look at it, and I don't like this section here. So I'm going to go in with my ground espresso and just see if I can remedy that problem that it's having. Also, the centre could possibly do with being just a little bit darker. Where's my pointy brush here? So this is the thing, you know, I really recommend that you do your painting, you put it up in a prominent place, somewhere where you're going to keep seeing it, and something will speak to you. It'll either, you'll look at it and you'll think, wow, that's a masterpiece, or you look at it and think, that bit could do with a bit more. Well, you can always go back in. So this is not the black, this is the brown. It's ground espresso, and I'm just going to, I don't like that straight line, so I'm just going to dot over it. I'm going to put a few little more dots around here in the brown though, not very many. And then I want some dots in the centre as well, because it's looking a bit flat. and it always looks like the centre is dished in. It might be for all I know, but that's what it always looks like. So I just want to see if I can make it say that. Yeah, I'm happy with that, I think. And I might just even put some just generally around. Just give it lots of texture. And I think I'll be happier with it then. Yeah, I like that better, actually. That's fine. Right, so what I'm going to do now is put in some sort of a background. Now, it's up to you what you do. I'm just going to use some distress ink. It's distress stain. It's, you know, watery ink. I don't have the spray ones. These are the ones that came out before the sprays. They're just, they've got a sponge head applicator. So I'm just going to put some down there on my mat. I'm going to water it down with my sprayer. And then get a brush. And I'm just going to put a background in. Doesn't have to be exact. It absolutely doesn't. Just bits of colour here and there, and you don't really want it all the same shade. Well, I don't want mine. What I do want to do is get rid of that pencil line before I paint it in. And you never know, it might cover up some of the boo-boos I made with all the splotches around it. There we go. Right, so let's do this side first. You want some bits with a bit more pigment than others, so you just go back over it and put some more down. Nothing more difficult than that. Might even want to leave some white space. It's fine too. Do what you fancy. That's the thing. I don't think it's going to cover up my yellow dots, but never mind. Doesn't matter. So that's fine. I'm just going to go back in there and just add a few more drops to there. I'm going to run out of this, so let's put some more down. And yellow and blue make very happy bedfellows, so it does set the sunflower off really quite nicely. So it's just like using watercolour. So if you if you haven't got this, just use some watercolour. I think most of us have most of us got watercolour paints? I think so, but you know, maybe I'm being presumptuous. You can certainly buy quite inexpensive watercolour paints that'll do the job. They'll do the job. What I would say is important is your paper. Don't try and do this on ordinary paper. You'll just end up frustrated. Start a bit more there. Because it'll start to pill, it'll start to sort of come apart on you. It'll buckle. It won't be good. You won't like it. So wait till your local Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever it is got a sale on their mixed media or watercolour pads, and get yourself some, because once you get into painting you don't have to get through paper. So let's have a look at that then. Well, that's not so bad, is it? Let's put a few more splotches down, add a bit of interest to it, and I might just dry that and come in round here again, make it a little darker on this side. I'm just going to come in here again, just going over again. Just up close there, you don't need to drag it all the way out. That's fine. So we've just got that darker section there. Okay, I guess I'm done. I think I'm finished. I really hope that you follow along with the drawing and you see that it's really not difficult. I mean, it really isn't difficult. If you break it down like I did, draw your ovals in, draw your big petals in, and then start filling up the background. And you can do it. You really, really can. I know you can. So I'll see you very, very soon with our next exciting sketching and painting. Thanks for joining me. Bye.